Linda, here we are again.
Yes, well, so
We,
good to be back.
our topic, if y'all have noticed here, is alligators, immigration, and autism. And I know that is a full spectrum of things, but Linda has a TV show, Loving Life's Journey, right? And Linda,
Yes,
when does that TV show air?
it airs on Tuesday nights live at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Bold Brave TV. The links in the chat here,
Okay.
and I love it because I get to bring amazing people on my show.
Mhm.
And you were on just this past week, and that was an interesting show because we just kind of
We kind of went all
we
over the
just
place.
kind of went down the rabbit hole of odd things. I don't remember how
I don't
we
know
got into
how we
the
got there either.
alligators, but it was very funny.
Right, it was, and it's like I think we started talking about it had something to do with trying to conservation and stuff like that, and and we got off on a kind of a tangent with alligators, but here in Florida we have alligators and crocodiles and reptilians like that, and what people don't understand is you can't just go out and shoot one.
No, they're
It's
protected.
they have a whole process here. This is some of the funny things that I came up with when looking, because my son came in and he asked how can we hunt an alligator. Apparently one of his Ukrainian friends asked him about it, and so he asked and stuff like that. So I looked some things up, and there's a couple ways that you can. Basically, you're trapping an alligator. You're not really hunting them. There's only one firearm type piece of equipment that you can use. It's called a bang stick, and you have to actually, with an alligator, because that skin is so hard, you have to hit it at the right spot. Otherwise, all you're going to do is make them mad. And then you can use a crossbow or a bow and arrow, I think, but that's kind of one of those. You better hit that one right too.
Yeah.
But they recommend, this was what was so funny, they recommend basically fishing for one.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, right. And there's certain hooks that you can use. There's certain stuff that you can use. But we got into the funny part was it described, once you hook one and bring it alongside the boat, how to get it into the boat before you kill it. And we talk about alligators. They have really big, strong, like an alligator that's maybe a year old has like 1,000-pound pressure point. So if they grab a hold of you, they gonna hurt, right?
Yeah.
But they don't have the strength opening.
Right.
And so the recommendation is to grab the snout, hold it closed, and wrap it with tape or rubber bands or whatever, and go on and then process it from there. And I just thought it was
literally just hold it with your fingers.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah,
they can't. It's really hard for them.
They don't have the strength. Yeah, and and people come to Florida, have folks come down here and visit and everything, and they're like, well, that's a really pretty lake. I think I want to go swimming. And say, okay, that's fine. So how do you tell whether or not there's alligators in the water? And so what I tell them to do is go down to the edge of the water before you get in and feel the water. If it's wet, there's probably an alligator.
And it's funny because you see them walking on the golf course.
Oh yeah.
And they're considered part of the course.
Yep.
They could be anywhere. And my aunt and uncle, where they live, they've got one of those ponds there. And when they have their granddaughters, when their dogs sitting, the granddaughters, they're little dogs, and they're like, yeah, we don't go anywhere near the water with those dogs because
I have little
just
dogs.
Alligator food.
Yeah, they are, and it is against the law to kill an alligator that snatches your dog. And so, and there's all sorts of things in Florida that could snatch a small dog, and we have small dogs, and we have, I know we have at least one. I think we actually have two down here. They usually pay close attention. When they get to a certain length, they'll come in and they trap them and they take them to a preserve. But we name them. Our alligator's named Charlie. Have no idea where we came up with that. The one over at the other place we lived, we called it Billy. And so it's just a way to reference it. And even our 4-year-old grandson is like, hey, can we go see Charlie? And because a lot of times they're just on the bottom. They don't really come out. But like today,
No, they're not out looking to cause trouble. They're
no,
just
they're not. They are not. Today it got a little bit warm, so things warmed up. So my guess is here within the next hour or two, Charlie he'll be out sunning themselves, because the water's cold all the way down, and they like to come out and they'll lay in the sun for a while. So, but there's all sorts of places I would strongly recommend if you come to Florida. There's a place, and I can't remember the name of it. There's several of them that have alligator preserves, and
yeah,
they'll take you out in those big airboats, and when you get out there, if you have a good guide, they'll be able to tell you all there is about alligators. And what's really cool is most of them last several hours, and they go into the evening. And it's funny, you don't know that there's that many there, but if it's evening and the sun's setting, it's getting dark, moon's starting to come up, there's enough light. What you're looking for is two red dots, and they're about that far apart. That's alligator eyes. They
I
show
know
up like a red.
it's so freaky, but it's so cool.
It is cool. It is really cool. And those guys who do that, they know where all the nests are, so they avoid them. They stay
Right.
far enough away, so that mama doesn't get upset. And they know the signs. And it's funny because this one guy that we went with, he I don't know if he named them. He probably did in his head, but he knew some of the idiosyncrasies of the different females. So he knew how close he could get without irritating, and some of them he couldn't get near as close. And so those guys that deal with that every day, and they're in the preservation of wildlife. It's really, really way cool. But if you really want to see and get a good laugh, go in and Google, how to catch an alligator in Florida, or what are the rules and regulations. Now, make sure you're on the Florida Wildlife Commission website, because, and it's funny that that's all there. It's just hilarious. And, and we have several, I don't know that alligators actually even have a natural predator other than
I was
man.
going to say, I can't imagine what would be a predator, at least in the States.
Yeah, not in the States. I mean, we have here in Florida, they do a kind of a roundup, or they try to keep the numbers down, and it's once a year. So it's really heavily permitted, and it's not easy to actually do. So it's just one of those, it can be done. And a lot of folks go out in groups, and I don't know that there's safety in numbers. Maybe it just feeds the alligators more. I don't know. But I have a really good friend who is a real estate agent. He has a consumer quarterback show here in Tampa, by a gentleman by the name of Brandon Rhymes. I played football here in Florida. Really, really great guy. But he lives on Lake Tarpon, really big lake. Well, like I said, if the water's wet, there's alligators. But he water skis, his kids swim, and and he says they've never been bothered. And so, but when they come out to what they use to catch the alligators, when they get too big, when they start seeing the big ones, then they have an organization that comes out and they trap them. But they use whole chickens.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's really pretty cool, and it doesn't hurt the alligators, and so it's just one of those, and then they move them to a place like a preserve or something like that, where and if they're overly aggressive, or have been, if they've done some attacks and things like that, they don't just kill them. They take them. They have an area. This one preserve did, and all the aggressive ones were in this area. So if they're going to be aggressive, they're going to be aggressive with each other, right?
Right.
And so, but I really enjoyed it. It's just really, really cool deal. And here in Florida, we have some pythons. And so you can go on there and get videos of pythons and alligators. And quite frankly, if an alligator gets a python in the water, python's not winning. But it's really cool. And there's some other, animals that you wouldn't think here. that are kind of, I don't want to call them nuisance because everything has a place,
Mhm.
but wild boar.
Yeah, I was gonna say we talked about wild boar,
Yeah.
and are they around the entire? Like, are they down in the Everglades, or are they more up north?
I've been told that they're pretty much around the state. We had a couple here across from us, and I think they came out and trapped them and moved them because we are in a residential area, and they make a very distinct sound. You know,
Or
um,
do they?
oh yeah, when they're grunting and stuff like that. Oh yeah, yep.
And
It'll
boy,
wake you
they
up.
can move.
They can move. They are fast, and they are very very protective of their family unit. So. But yeah, it's Florida is very interesting. I lived up by you up in Wyoming. We have some of the same stomping grounds up there, and all we really had to worry about was the occasional mountain lion or bear in the backyard. And they're more afraid of us than we are of them, I think.
Yeah, they're just looking for something to eat and
Yeah.
some peace and quiet, and
Yep.
you
Yep.
know. And in Cheyenne, we didn't even really see much of anything except antelope.
Yeah. hmm But we
But
had
oh,
a
they're so pretty. The
yeah.
antelope
Oh
are so
yeah.
graceful.
Yeah. Well, we titled this Alligators, Immigration, and Autism because of you have to go back and Linda, is your show, can it be replayed?
Yes, it can, and I will put the link where they can find the previous episodes. So
Yeah.
that's in the chat as well. But if you go to boldbravetv.com, there is a link for my show, and then you can go in and pick the episodes that you want to watch. Um,
And you've been doing that for quite a while.
a little over a year, yeah.
Okay.
And very excited because now we're on Spotify as well. So
Oh, cool.
that's getting us out there. When we do the show, it's live. And
Right.
even though this show isn't live, we treat it like live.
Mhm.
So you never know what's going to happen or what's going to come on.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is when we did the show Tuesday that you were on, like I texted you about a half an hour before the show, and I said I don't think my guest is going to be able to make it
Yeah.
because I hadn't heard back from her.
Yeah.
And so you just jumped in, and we just talked about whatever came to mind.
Yeah. Whatever came to mind. That is so
And
true.
how we came up with all three, I don't even remember.
I
but
have
it
no
was-
idea, but we sure played the gamut. The thing is though, Linda, it's really kind of there's some topics that we've covered, and I know you've covered on your show and stuff like that are relevant. And we are both in an arena where you have to know what's going on around you. You work with a lot of folks in their self-care. You work with DISC as I do. We work, we coach people, we work with people and things like that. And so, there comes a point in time where even if you're coaching somebody, sometimes they just have to talk, right? And you have to sit back and say, okay, this is not really what we're here for. And they may be going off to Pluto. But a good coach, in my opinion, the coach doesn't go off to Pluto.
No.
But sometimes the client needs to vent. They need to get something out. And so I think both of us are wise enough to know when that happens. And so we kind of pay attention to that. But then again, when we get when two of us get together on something, there's no telling where it's going to go.
True.
I mean, we've had some good shows, and we did get into immigration. Now, folks, don't think this is going to be a political discussion. It's not.
No, it's not.
We have both Linda and I look at immigration from different perspectives, and we have different situations that we deal with in our areas. Linda's in Colorado. I'm in Florida. My immigration scenarios have to do with my family,
right?
And Linda, you're dealing with some communities and stuff like that there in Colorado, and folks, immigration is a human issue,
right? It's not a political issue, and
right.
And even where I deal with it is what's going on locally here with friends and people we've met during that time. But also I have family members that should be okay, but they're not sure, depending on what happens. And again, not politics, but it's dealing with people on an interpersonal level and not rules and regulations and
Right,
whatever.
right.
Because regardless of how that goes, there is humanity and
Hmm.
human
Hmm.
beings attached to those outcomes. And
Yes.
just being able to be an ear for someone who, you know, I'm a white American that was born here. My parents are both um, citizens when I was born. I don't have to worry about any of that.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's not true of a lot of the people that I know.
Right. Yeah,
And
me too.
for me, it's about being an ear for them, helping them in ways that I can, and not getting too mired down in what's going on for them because there's only so much
Hmm.
that I can control and do.
Yep.
And a lot of the times, it's not even that they want a fix. They just want to know that somebody hears them and
Mhm.
understands their situation.
Right, right,
And even if I can't understand it, I can definitely listen to it.
right, right.
And sometimes that might be what my client needs
Hmm.
so that we can continue either later that session or in the next session.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because if that is the forefront and that's what's coming out during the client experience, the coaching experience that time,
Hmm.
yes, I can bring them back around. But if they're not mentally ready to bring it back around, I don't know that that's a helpful thing to do.
Right, right,
Um, and it's one of those things I think that we have to take assessment of during that specific session.
right. Exactly, exactly. So,
Um, because that's the goal of coaching is kind of to be what they need right then.
hmm, hmm, hmm.
And if they say they're ready to be coached and then they're still not, I don't know. I don't feel necessarily that I should interrupt them because the
Yeah, that's where we slip from being a coach to being a listener or a counselor or you
and I'm
know,
not a counselor and I always make
yeah,
sure they know that. But
yeah, yeah, yeah. Me too. But
sometimes if you just need to vent and be heard,
mhm. Yeah, 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 yeah. We wear several hats in one session. That's for sure. That's for sure.
yeah.
Um, and so, for some of you who may be dealing with this, or just to relate personal side of it. So, in the previous administration, there was a program called parole, and now one of the parole programs that I'm extremely familiar with is called Uniting for Ukraine, and this is how my family got here. I was the front person. I did all the paperwork. I did all that kind of stuff, and then and there was a whole process to go through to get there. And through the last 3 or 4 years, a lot of folks came, and they had parole programs for several companies, four or five countries, I believe. And quite frankly, I know one was Cuba, one was, I believe, Venezuela, Argentina, a couple others, Haiti. But trust me, folks, I don't know all of those folks because the one I was concerned with was Uniting for Ukraine. So you can fact check me on that, but I know Uniting for Ukraine was a parole program that I worked very intimately with. And we really want to get into a little bit more on some of the things, how we may be able to help you and work you through some immigration things and how to talk to people who may come to you. I know that we get people out at our food pantry who are here legally on a parole program through various countries, and they don't know what's going to happen. And so um, I do not believe that at this point in time they're just going to come in and deport people and stuff like that. I believe there'll be a process. But we're running out of time, so we want to pick this conversation up Linda, we willing to do another time on some more? We'll get into some more immigration, and we haven't at all talked about autism, and I really want to get into that.
Yes.
So folks, this is we've been talking about alligators. We spend a lot of time on alligators. So if you're in Florida, test the water, man. Find out if there's an alligator there. Stick your hand in. If it's wet, there's probably an alligator.
Yeah, I might test it with a stick or something.
Yeah, I would too, because the hand is just about the right size. Looks like a small chicken. And anyway, this has been Sam McEwen along with my very dear friend Linda Wilson for a Balancing Act, Living Life in Harmony. And thank you for joining us today. Linda, any final words here before we get ready to come back next week?
No, just be blessed, everyone. And just remember that you don't have any idea what somebody's going through. So just be kind.
Be kind. Exactly. All right. We'll see you next week.